Hello and welcome to another Industry Careers for PhDs podcast brought to you by Cheeky Scientist. I'm your host, Isaiah Henkel, and today we will be talking with Cédric Brulé about management consulting positions. If you're interested in listening to the full interview and getting access to all of these interviews live, being able to attend them live, go to cheekyscientist.com/association and learn about becoming an associate. If you'd like these highlights delivered as podcasts to your email inbox, go to cheekyscientist.com and email subscribe on that page in the bottom center. And you can also listen to these podcasts and all of our podcasts on iTunes. So once again, we will be talking with Cédric Brulé today about management consulting. Cédric is a French scientist with an academic background. He passed his PhD in chemistry in 2004 in France. Then he went for 2 successive postdoctoral fellowships abroad, both in academic environment, first at Kent State University in Ohio, and then later in Belgium, in Europe, of course. And after 10 years dedicated to academia, Cédric transitioned to the industry, and worked from a principal chemist position for a French pharmaceutical company during the next 2 years. And then from there, he went into a scientific consulting position for the lawyers firm Deloitte. So for 5 years now, he has been advising clients, mostly life science companies, on research and development funding in this management consulting position. So we're going to jump right in with Cédric now.
Cédric, thank you for being here with us.
Yeah, no problem, Isaiah. And thank you for the kind introduction. Hello, everyone.
All right, great. Just to make sure, can you guys all hear Cédric okay? Cédric, we need you to just speak up a little bit. You're a little bit unclear. Let's try one more time. You might have to just move the mic around a little bit. I want to make sure it's good for everyone.
Of course. A little bit louder like this. Is that okay?
Yeah, it's a bit louder. If you speak louder, I think you're going to be fine. That is better.
Okay.
And you can see the chat box. Yeah, you might just have to mildly yell. I know it's usually just us Americans who yell, but it would help. So thank you.
I understand. No problem.
Okay, great.
See that it's getting better now. Fine.
Perfect. So lots of experience. Really appreciate you being here. What's the firm that you're currently with?
It is Taj. Taj is the lawyer firm of the Deloitte company.
Ah, Deloitte. Okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yeah. So for those of you guys that if you had trouble hearing, I will type it in here.
I can type it to you.
So this is great. So Cédric, we as you know, we have an audience here of everyone who is trying to transition into a industry role or at the very least an alternative career, and you made this transition yourself. So one of the first questions I always like to ask is, what was the transition like for you? So you did 2 postdocs, and you were in academia for a very long time, all around the world. I guess what made you decide to transition into industry, and then what was the process like for you?
Well, in my case, I somehow always knew that I didn't really want to stay in academia, even before starting my PhD. I didn't really want to become a teacher or researcher and follow the logical path, I guess I was okay with the teaching side of it, but inside me, I didn't really feel like doing fundamental research and publish papers just for the heck of it, I wanted another purpose for my work, not just writing papers and prestigious journals and so on. So I guess I wanted something like a tangible meaning and contribute in some ways, to a better world. So I guess for me, I needed to feel more useful to the society. I don't know if it makes sense to you, but I didn't just want to publish papers. Nonetheless, although I knew I was interested into working in industry, I still wanted to do a PhD, and so I did and passed my PhD. And thank you for my mentor at that time, because I've been able to do my PhD in organic chemistry in collaboration with a pharmaceutical company, which was a good starting point for me.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to kind of recap, so the big reason was you I guess you didn't just want to publish, correct?
Well, yeah, correct. I mean, I didn't want just, to do fundamental research and just publish just to fill in databases. And I just wanted something that was more real and then with direct effect on what I could do, a goal, a specific goal. Yeah.
Yeah, and in terms of the process of transitioning, so that was the reason why, and I think there's a lot of you listening right now that have a similar reason, right? Certainly you might enjoy publishing or you might not, but when you're limited career-wise to only publishing, that can be a big factor in deciding to transition to industry where you could do both and you can do other things as well. So in terms of the process of transitioning, what was the most challenging part of your transition, Cédric, if you can think back a little bit? Try to put yourself back in the shoes of all the PhDs who are listening now who are deciding to transition. I guess what was the challenging part for you, and do you have any kind of tips, any general tips you would give them?
Right, to transition into the industry, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yes, because for me, I didn't think about the transition for the industry, but I completely understand that most of the students in PhD take that as a transition. But for me, because I wanted before starting my PhD, I wanted to go to industry. It was not really a transition. I mean, in my mind, at least. When I was doing the real transition for me was more when I was going to the consulting work. You know what I mean?
From what kind of work? You speak up a little bit.
The consulting actually. For me, the transitioning process was more about the consulting than really going to industry. Once again, just before in my mind, I knew that I wanted to go in industry for those reasons. So
yes,
well, the big things that I have to accept. Well, let me explain that just briefly. After doing 2 postdoctoral fellowships abroad, I went back to France working within a pharmaceutical company as it was a project leader and principal scientist. So I was working in the upstream part of the pharmaceutical development, meaning that my mission relied still on a large part of applied research and scientific experimentation. My projects were meaningful since I worked on finding new active ingredients, Um, However, I realized that my job that I was still just about 90% of the time on the bench conducting experiments. And somehow I knew that I wanted something more. I knew that I wanted more interactions, with other scientists besides chemists. I knew that I wanted maybe to be involved more in the project decision on a business point of view or something like that.
Yes.
Well, basically, I wanted more cross-section responsibility. And not just doing research in another context. Just if you do research in
well, this is similar. No, I think that's an important point. I'm just going to jump in real quick because last week's webinar we talked about cross-functional work, right? And I think if you want to stay at the bench and work on one project in depth, academia is a great place for you. But if you want to do some of this what do they call it, cross-sectional, cross-functional work, transitioning is a smart move. And also on that note, what motivated you specifically to transition into management consulting, Cédric?
Yes. Well.
Why did you transition into management consulting in particular?
Well, because as I said, for me, doing research in academia is one thing. Doing research in industry is another thing. But for me, it was kind of the same. Because I was mostly 90% of the time at the bench, doing some experiments. So the overall context was just a little bit different. But for me, I needed more than just experimenting on the bench. the bench. I wanted cross-section responsibility more than that. So I decided to enter into the consulting firm where I am now actually. So what is it that I do now is that I advise my clients who are the life science company basically, and I advise them on financial aspect of their research. So basically for me now, I'm on the other side of the fence, not doing research anymore. And this is the moment for me. I mean, that is the transition for me when I finally realized that I was leaving research for good. And somehow I would say, well, I shouldn't say that, but somehow I felt like betraying my education, Well, I say somehow because, when you spend so many years learning and working in academia on science and doing what it is that you do, at some point you feel guilty to say no to this anymore or to do something else. And for me, going into industry, even if it meant leaving academia, wasn't really cheating on my education. It's that since I still got to do research, but just in different context.
Yeah, no, this is a good point. I mean, so, and I love when we have outside guests bring this up for you guys, for those of you listening. How many of you have felt a sense, maybe even just a mild sense, or maybe it was more social pressure in academia that maybe you were betraying your academic training by wanting to transition into industry, or that you would be giving up something? Anybody in the chat box, if you felt that way at all, don't lie. I think we've all felt that way, right? Yeah, it's very common. I mean, because you spent your whole life being trained to do academic research, and plus, you see other people. I mean, it's kind of bred into academia. So I appreciate you sharing that. And so obviously you were able to get over these feelings, like you just said, and you're able to see that going into industry, it's especially for this position, it's utilizing your academic training, especially in your case. And many of you who are listening, you have a broad background. Maybe you've done multiple postdocs, or you've gone on to do a postdoc, and you've gone on to switch what you were studying on, whatever it might be. This prepares you for positions like management consulting and other cross-sectional, cross-functional positions. So I do want to break down exactly how you entered into management consulting and like the interview process and these things. But first, maybe you can talk a little bit about what it's exactly like, because I think a lot of people, they love the idea of management consulting. I don't know, it has this, it just seems like a very high level position, right? We have a lot of people saying, oh, management consulting, those people are really smart and really tough. A lot of them don't realize that you're going to be spending long hours on projects and cases. So maybe you can talk about the day-to-day. What is the job of a management consultant look like?
Yeah, sure. Well, as a consultant, my job is to advise clients who perform R&D and how they could properly fund their project, related to grants or mostly research tax credits, because in France we have a financing tool that is the research tax credit, and it's quite powerful since it covers up to 30% of your research expenses for the industry. Which is something that is claimed more and more by companies and different sizes. And well, the difference between my actual job and the position within the industry is that your projects are your clients, and you work with about 20 different clients, at the same time, basically. One thing we have to know is when you work as a consultant like me in financing R&D projects, it's an activity that has a turnover of a year. So basically, you have different phases all over the year. First thing that you do is you have an audit phase. And the audit phase is basically you interact with your client and you audit their technical project. So you get to talk with R&D directors or as well with CFOs, because for the tax part of the RTC. You have a second phase where you account for various expenses and calculate the total amount of research tax credits that the company can claim. And finally, you have another aspect of the job is to produce a technical supporting document for the authorities in which you describe both your calculation approach and your client project. So you get to interact with your clients on the technical point of view. You get as well to write down a little bit of their research in order to justify your approach to the authorities. So you have different aspects of the job as a consultant here. And since you work with several clients at the same time, you deal with lots of deadlines, sometimes very, very short. So it could be very demanding environment, and it forces you to anticipate and absorb activity peaks sometimes, you know. So that could be the difference with an academic environment, which is a little bit less stressful, I would say. So in that sense, you have to be well organized and being able to work several missions, simultaneously. Of course, the position requires you to commit to your clients, and I would say work about 50 hours a week or something like that, depending on how efficient you are. But you shouldn't see the position and the job as something that is, as you said, you know, for really clever people, or nobody can get there. You know, if I was able to do that, I mean, everybody is pretty much able to do that as well. It's just a matter of commitment and motivation, you know. If you feel like you don't really fit in academia for some reason, or you wouldn't fit as well for research within the industry, maybe because you want something else, you know, maybe because you want to know a little bit more about what really drives the project, you know, besides science. So maybe you want to know how you manage the project on the business side of it, you know. I guess the best advice I should say in that case is no matter what, you should listen to your inner voice and don't feel guilty about, you know, living academia in that manner.
No, I think that's good. What does I guess a day in the life look like? So when you go into work, you know, how are things divided up? Are you have a couple of months working on one project and then you go to another project? What is it look like, I guess, more in detail, like when you walk into the office, like what are you doing specifically?
Well, depending on the time of the year you're working on, if you have an audit phase or you know, writing justification phase or whatsoever, basically you're gonna have to think about all your clients, because the deadlines of your clients are pretty much, you know, the same time, you know, going the same pace within the year. So basically you can wake up in the morning and have a big day with, you know, you're gonna have to handle like 3, 4, 5, or even maybe 8 or 10 clients within the day. So sometimes you will have just to answer a question, because you will have to send them a deliverable. You will have to contact them for any reason. You will have to find the time slot for an appointment, or even go to a meeting with another one within the day. So you have to be well organized for that matter. You know, you have to be ready to have a client calling you during the day, and then, you know, be able to either answer them on the spot or plan something with them later on, you know. Just, when I say that you should be able to handle several clients simultaneously, depending on the time of the year, it's pretty much it, really, you know. Sometimes it could be very demanding for that. Yeah.
Oh, this is good. And I think, you know, this is something that there's always kind of like, it's like a black box, like many things in industry for PhDs. You know, what exactly are you doing as a management consultant? I mean, obviously people study, you know, you do case studies and things you have to do to get into the position, but what does it look like on a daily basis? So I appreciate that.
Right. Sorry.
No, go ahead, please.
I just wanted to add that, the work-life balance is perfectly manageable anyway, and it's probably necessary to prevent any kind of burning out. But I don't want to darken the picture here, but in my case, I am a dad, and I value family time, so I try to handle the work-life balance as best as I can. That's really easy on an everyday basis, but it's largely, of course, it's possible to do that, and anybody of you will be able to do that as well.
And I guess, moving forward a little bit, or I guess moving backward actually. So this is what the position looks like. What were the challenges you faced in terms of transitioning into that position? Like, what did it look like to move from academia or, from your current industry position into management consulting?
Right.
Especially as a PhD, like, what did the process look like?
Right. And that is a very good question indeed, because it wasn't really that easy at first for me. And I guess the hardest thing was, since we are highly educated and we come from an area in which people respect us for our knowledge and our work, it was really hard for me at first to have to prove it all from scratch in another area, which in my case is the tax system. I didn't know anything about that before. Indeed, today I'm working now with lawyers and other scientists, except chemists for sure. So people won't be able to judge you on your technical skills, since they don't understand a single word of what you are good at and what you are used to do. So you are going to make a difference in that kind of consulting work, in that kind of work. You are going to make a difference not on what you know best, but on your abilities to get the job done in time, for instance, how to interact with clients, or how to just about your self-confidence. It's just about show them your kind of self-confidence in order to gain their trust, not only from your boss, but only from your client too. So you have two aspects of the job actually. You have to get credit from your boss and from the client. So at some point, it is not just about skills and what you know and your PhD degree. It's more about confidence. That's pretty much about it, because they won't judge you. Once again, they won't judge you on your knowledge and what you know, if it is chemistry, physics, and literature, or whatever that you've been doing for this year. They will judge you on how confident you are.
Yeah, and I think that's an important point. We talk a lot about this. Displaying that confidence in yourself, right? In your PhD, in your training. This is something that you guys need to develop, right? At least develop the ability. I mean, you have this confidence. You should know your value, but you have to develop the ability to express it correctly, which is what I believe Cédric is talking about.
Okay. And actually, I wanted to raise another challenge for me while transitioning into the consulting profession. Being able to handle several projects and several clients simultaneously was very hard for me at the beginning, because, when you work on your PhD thesis, you pretty much have one project with a 3-year deadline. Plus, it is not really deadline, since a science project never really ends, so you try to find a magic pill to end your story at the end of your PhD. So I wouldn't say that we are talking about real big rushes in terms of deadline when you're conducting your PhD. But when you work as a consultant, every client is king, and you should be able to handle every single one of them on the same level of quality and respect their short notice deadlines. It's a very different environment, and I have to admit that I had trouble at first, to anticipate peaks of activity and prevent working late at night. I guess after a while, and after a few late working sessions, you're okay with that, and you learn the job quickly, I guess. But it wasn't that easy for me at the beginning. So I'm not saying that it is really hard or impossible to do. I won't want to scare you here. We will have the potential to achieve that at some point, but just keep in mind that academia doesn't teach you or prepare you for that. So the industry reality, and that it would be difficult at first sometimes. So but you shouldn't stop with that. Get used to it. Yeah.
No, I think that's a good point. Again, going back a couple steps to when we're talking about work-life balance and then what you do exactly on a daily basis. So in your particular role, do you help with R&D funding to your clients? For example, do you help them identify investors, or do you write grants? Do you work with both private and public clients? Are you able to answer any of these questions?
Yeah, of course. So, well, basically, my job is mostly about the research tax credit, because it's something that everybody claims these days, and the research is it's quite okay and eligible for this kind of funding tool. But of course, we work with grants as well on the side. So if a client comes to us and saying that he wants to find new partners for a collaboration or for a special, budget, grant or whatever, we would take the time and then do that for them as well. We will advise them on which partner should be good, whether it could be an academic partner or whether it would be best to have an industrial partner, those kind of things. So we are here to audit their activities, and if we think among their activities, some of them might be eligible for another kind of budget, kind of different grants and those kind of things, it's our job to advise them on that specific point. Yeah, of course.
No, that's good, and I appreciate that. I think the more we can kind of untangle what you're doing on a daily basis, it's helpful, because and we talked to you guys about this over and over again. You don't want to just say, "Oh, management consultant, I really like that title." Somebody said in the chat box, "Yeah, it's got good vibrations." Well, what are you doing on a day-to-day basis, right? Is your daily lifestyle going to have good vibrations for you too?
Thank you for joining us for another Industry Careers for PhDs podcast. If you're interested in attending one of these interviews live, or if you're interested in getting access to the full interview, including all of the background materials and show notes, go to cheekyscientist.com/association and learn how to become an associate. You can get on the wait list for the next association enrollment period there and learn full details about the program. It's a program specifically designed to help PhDs transition into top industry positions. If you would like to receive more of these interview highlights via our podcast sent directly to your email, go to cheekyscientist.com and email subscribe under where it says Start Here. If you haven't already, you can also subscribe to this podcast on iTunes. Until next week, remember your value as a PhD and start thinking and acting like a successful industry professional.